Next is Professor Ruth Wedgwood. Wedgwood is Director of the International Law Program at Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies, where she is the Edward Berlin Professor of International Law and Diplomacy. She is the Vice Chair of Freedom House and served on the United Nations Human Rights Committee in Geneva, the Secretary of State's Advisory Committee on International Law, and the U.S. Defense Policy Board. She's also a member of the editorial board of the American Journal of International Law. We have seen her of course, many times on BBC, heard her on National Public Radio, seen her on the Laird News Hour as Wedgwood.
Thank you very much. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. I will note our venue, which is the Willard Hotel, which is a very elegant place for drinks and canapes, but also, if you look at the plaque on the outside of the building, was the site in 1861 of an attempt to prevent the ultimate outbreak of the American Civil War. This venue of one last attempt to dissuade the South from seceding from the Union, and therefore I think it's quite appropriate that this be the kind of last clear chance venue for the discussion about Iran. Well, I married into the Wedgwood family about 30 years ago. That there was this marvelous fellow, Josiah Clement Wedgwood IV, who was an MP, who stood with Churchill in 1938-39, warning that the policies of appeasement toward Nazi Germany were extremely dangerous, that you couldn't make this partial peace, that Hitler had an unbounded appetite, that he wouldn't stay just with Czechia or with Poland, that he would eventually come even for the Brits. And he was considered a little kooky for doing so. He was ultimately right. And so too here I think it's terribly important from the point of view of human rights, American national strategy, to be deadly serious about what are the clear ambitions of Ahmadinejad. He is not the greatness of Persia. He is the immolation of Persia. And anybody who has looked at him and seen how he has effectively, almost like Adolf, managed to psychologically humiliate every audience that he speaks to at the UN, at the General Assembly, when he was given a friendly conversation at the Waldorf Astoria by some NGOs in New York who I think were fundamentally deluded whom they were dealing with. And when he uses his irrational rants as a way of the prelude to intimidation of the Middle East and Europe, which will only become unfathomably grave with the acquisition of nuclear weapons.